build my nest. Make sure I'm comfy. Okay. Well, hello! Welcome back to aRDists Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah. So in this episode, I've got a few different things we're going to be covering. So first thing we need to get through is the nonsense for this episode. Basically, my amygdala is an ass. And if you watched I think the first episode I talked about anxiety and stuff and amygdala-based anxiety. I mentioned that I'm reading Rewiring Your Anxious Brain, and I'm also going to a group anxiety class. And so each week we check in at the beginning of the session, talk about how our week's been going, what anxiety we've faced, and go over the chapter that we read, and then talk about whether or not we practiced one of the skills that we went over in the previous meeting. From going through this process, I've come to learn that I have both cortex-based anxiety and amygdala-based anxiety. So amygdala is kind of like the fight or flight sort of anxiety that comes up, and then cortex-based anxiety is more of the like envisioning things that are going to go wrong, or it's more of like your thought processes are causing anxiety, and they can play off of each other. So I'm blessed with a variety of anxiety, so lucky me. So this past week, we had to practice skills for amygdala-based anxiety. So I chose to practice it on a relatively low anxiety-inducing activity. So I was going to go to my post office box and just check it to see if there was anything in it. And for me, there's a lot of anticipatory anxiety. So I'm thinking about what if scenarios, what if I have a bad interaction with someone? What if something happens on the drive there? What if, just silly things what if the interaction is bad? What if, just worrying about things that'll never come to fruition. And it takes up a lot of brain space and energy thinking about all of these possible scenarios instead of just going and doing it and seeing what happens. So the skills I wanted to practice were deep breathing into your diaphragm. So to stretch out your diaphragm, because a lot of the times with anxiety, you'll take really shallow breaths just up in your chest. So the idea is to get more diaphragmatic breathing. So you're breathing way down in your belly. And then also progressive muscle relaxation. So for me, I also, other than noticing the shallow breathing up in the top of my chest, I also tense up everywhere unintentionally, and most of the time I don't realize it until I get out of the anxiety inducing situation, and then I'm like, oh wow, I can finally relax. It's like having your muscles tensed and then all of a sudden just relaxing them. So thinking about relaxing them in the moment. So as I said, my nonsense for this week is that my amygdala is an ass. So I was getting ready to go to the post office. I'm thinking about scenarios that are going to happen. I'm practicing breathing while I'm at home, getting ready to go. And then I go out to the car and the car won't start. So scenario that I didn't even think of happening. The car wouldn't start. It was not turning over. So I just pumped the gas and turned it multiple times and eventually got it started. But I still didn't want to end up going to the post office, having it not start up when I came out, and then having to walk home. So I just said, meh, I'm going to leave this for today. I'll start the car up tomorrow and see if it was just because we had cold weather kind of thing. Next day, I had some more anticipatory anxiety, wondering what if the car, needs a new alternator? What if it's, needs some sort of repair that I'm going to have to pay for now? And I won't be able to go to the post office and just do this one thing. So I was worried about that. And I went out to the car, started up fine, went to the post office. And I mentioned in a past episode that I also don't like one of the guys that works at this post office. He's just hard to read, and I don't like interacting with him. So it was just P.O. box. I could go in the side door. I wouldn't even have to see him. Be a quick in and out, just grab whatever in my P.O. box and leave. So I get there, and of course I open up my P.O. box, and there's a key to another locker, so a larger P.O. box. So I go over to the other P.O. box. It had to have been some sort of package, and I'm like, okay, what the hell is this? Because I don't normally get anything like that to this P.O. box. And it's to my P.O. box number, but it's somebody else's name. So probably the person who had the P.O. box before me. So now I have to go up to the counter and actually interact with them. And I get in line because she's helping it's not the guy that I don't like. It's the lady who's really nice. So I get in line. There's like 4 people ahead of me. I don't like interrupting people. Like the anxiety and social awkwardness of like going up and like interrupting someone while they're working, be like, hey, this isn't mine. I'm like, I'll just wait in line. It's fine. I'm not in a rush. I'm just going to do this. But the whole time I was waiting in line, I was just running through my mind how I'm going to explain this. Like, what's the best way to just phrase, like, this is the right P.O. box number, but I'm not that person. Like, what's the best way? Because I didn't want to just say this isn't mine and then have them put it right back in my P.O. box. So I, was playing out different ways of how to phrase that. So it took like 10 minutes to get to my turn. And by the time I got up there, the lady's like, oh, you could have just dropped this off on the side here and just let me know this wasn't yours. And I was like, oh, I don't like interrupting people. And then I just felt really dumb for having not done that. So yeah, the whole time I was standing in line, I wasn't practicing my breathing. I wasn't, doing muscle relaxation. I was just thinking about what I was going to say. So my amygdala won that one. So, so part of retraining the amygdala is to be less reactive to triggers, is to put yourself in situations like that, to help it learn that negative events aren't always going to happen as a result of whatever trigger you have. So, of course, my car didn't start. Of course, it ended up being somebody else's mail, and of course it had to be like an awkward interaction where they're telling me I should have done something that I didn't do and I felt stupid. So that is the nonsense I have for this episode. My amygdala clearly needs some work, but that's why we practice. And if you have similar experiences and also have amygdala based anxiety, let me know. Either leave a comment or message me on Instagram or something. I'd love to know. I'm not the only one who's I'd like to know my other anxiety peeps so we can laugh at ourselves. And yeah, in the moment it's just like, it's the fight or flight, where it's just like fight, flight, or freeze. And I feel like in that situation it's kind of like I'm frozen. I was in line waiting for a little bit. Like I didn't want to cut the line because I'd piss off all the other customers, and then I didn't want to interrupt the lady while she's interacting with someone, and that would piss off that customer. And then I got in line, and then at like 5 minutes, I'm like, oh, should I cut the line now? I'm like, no, that would just be weird to wait in line and then cut and then leave. And it's just like, I was frozen in place and just like, okay, I'm committed to doing this. I'm just going to do this. So anyway, moving on to our main topic of this episode, I wanted to talk about video editing, and specifically why I pursued it and why I think other dietitians should get on board. So let's get into it. So I figured I'd start with my interest and why I enjoy video editing. What do I get out of it, and that sort of thing. So first thing I get out of video editing is fulfillment. It kind of fulfills this creative need. It's really fun to put a story together from either random footage, like vlog footage of, bits and pieces of my day, or there's something about like Tetrising a timeline of footage that's just really satisfying for me. I don't know if I can fully explain it, but it's just like I enjoy Tetrising, like moving furniture around, finding different functional, like rearranging things in the refrigerator. Like something about making things more functional by Tetrising is really fun. And video editing is Tetrising images together into a cohesive video and story. So I really like that. It's like a problem solving game to me. So I personally find it satisfying. Not everybody does. Some people find it frustrating, especially learning the software and that sort of thing, but I don't know. I find it fun. Editing also allows me to communicate better. So if you guys saw the raw footage of this podcast, for example, it would probably it would not sound as good as it is edited because I am a kind of clumsy speaker, I would say. I think my brain moves faster than my voice, and even though I talk fast sometimes, I still can't keep up with my brain, and so I jump to the next thing before I finish talking. So a lot of the times I just won't finish a sentence. It comes across as lazy because I'm like, I can't be bothered to finish saying what I'm saying because I've already moved on to the next thing. Another thing I like about video editing is it allows me to help move this profession into the current century. I think a lot of it is still, when you have a big organization or a big, a large profession or a large body of people working together as a unit on something. So like you think of the whole healthcare profession, it's a big bloated group of people. That's the worst way to phrase that. It is a large group of people. My first boss that I had, Wayne, he explained it like them being a smaller company, it was a lot easier for them to pivot. It's like ships. Like you have a big ship like Titanic, it's like really hard to, it takes a long time to pivot in a different direction, whereas a smaller organization, a smaller ship can like, maneuver quicker. With dietetics, I feel like it's a big organization that's still kind of like slowly turning away from the way things used to be. And so video editing and encouraging more dietitians to step into the digital realm of video, just contributing to that movement. I'm like I'm not in charge of it. I'm just contributing to it. So allowing more dietitians to do that, I think, I feel like I'm contributing to something positive. Yeah, I think those are the main things. Like it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's satisfying, and I feel like I'm contributing to something bigger than just my own personal, enjoyment. So some reasons why I think dietitians should get on board with this, I kind of talked about a little bit already, but obviously moving the profession forward, keeping up with the times. So there's a dietitian, Katie Dodd. She talks about how with blogging and encouraging dietitians to blog, she wants, when anybody searches a nutrition topic, she wants a dietitian to show up on the first page of Google. And I kind of want the same thing to happen with YouTube videos. So if somebody searches something related to, a nutrition topic, I want a dietitian YouTube video to show up on the first page. That would be ideal, for, if somebody's looking up weight loss tips or pancreatitis, like I want dietitians to be there sharing that information, and not just nutritionists, not just doctors, not just influencers, not just supplement companies. I want people with our credentials and our nutrition knowledge, science background to be contributing to that pool of information. So that way more people who seek out answers to their questions online first, they have not only blog posts, they also have video content that they can watch that's from actual legitimate sources. But YouTube videos aside, search engines aside, video is also a helpful skill to have just within your business. Like if you're an entrepreneur, or even if you work for a hospital or some sort of private practice, whether it's yours or you work for somebody else's, to be able to put together video content for your clients, either as a supplement to your group programs or your one-on-one sessions, content that they can consume on their own time, that they can rewatch, rewind, pause, take a break from, and come back to over and over again. Because people learn in a lot of different ways. So being able to consume video content is really helpful for patients, I think. And then also, before you even take somebody on as a client, to be able to have video on your website, kind of a welcome video. You get to give an introduction to who you are, what you do, the types of conditions or people that you work with, and gives people a taste of who you are, your personality, and so they get a little bit of that. You build a little bit of that know, like, and trust factor before you even have had an interaction with them. And a picture and a bio is a good start, but a video brings it to a whole nother level of actually being able to see like how you talk, what kind of demeanor you have. It just elevates it a little bit more. I think it's also helpful. You see these like long pages on dietitian websites explaining, your packages and your services. You have all that laid out, you have it all typed out. Why not just read it to a camera and explain it? Maybe even walk through it on screen. And so that way people can see like your patient portal, what they can expect. It just breaks down that barrier of like, I don't know if this is going to be helpful for me, because you know that it's going to be helpful, but somebody who's never worked with a dietitian before, kind of pulling down the curtain and letting people see what it's like to work with a dietitian and the kind of support and human interaction that they're going to get, giving them the taste of that. I think video makes that so much easier. And I think so hypothetically, let's say you have a website, you're a private practice dietitian, and you have a welcome video talking about yourself. You have a video kind of explaining your services, another one that explains each of your packages, and one that kind of walks people through your patient portal and what they can expect to see from you, like resources and what they can expect. The people that will then book a discovery call with you are even warmer leads, because they've already seen you, they already know what to expect, and they're even more ready. I imagine they'll come with even more primed focused questions than just like getting a feel for you. They'll already have a feel for you even before they talk to you. So yeah, that's kind of my spiel on why I pursue video editing and why I think you should too. But of course, I'm biased. Since I don't have any sponsors for the podcast yet, I'm just going to shout out my course and my services real quick. So if you're interested in learning how to edit, I do offer a course on video editing called the Video Editing Accelerator. I'll post a link in the description and on the, in the show notes if you're interested in seeing the curriculum. And then I also freelance as a video editor. So if you don't want to be bothered with video editing, you just want to film yourself and then send me the raw footage, I can turn it into a beautifully finished video or course or presentation, whatever you've got. I can pretty much handle it. So moving into the next thing, I wanted to answer some student questions. So I got these questions from Rachel Bersano. She's a graduate student studying human nutrition, though she may have graduated by now. I'm not sure. I answered these questions probably about a year ago. And so I figured I'd read them and just read my responses since I put a lot of thought into them back then. And if I have anything else to add, I'll add it. So Rachel asked, why did you decide to pursue self-employment? So I said a couple reasons. I completed my internship and passed the exam during the beginning of the pandemic and decided when I was quarantined at home, I might as well take advantage of the lockdown and start a business. I've always wanted to work for myself, and traditional RD jobs I had been introduced to in the internship and during school just didn't quite feel like a good fit. It felt like the right time to jump into entrepreneurship, and I really enjoyed the flexibility it provides. So the other thing I'd add to this is self-employment for me as an anxious person felt a lot safer. And I feel like now that I've had therapy, I'm on medication, and I've had multiple therapists, multiple group sessions, that I kind of think I could manage working in a more traditional setting would be more manageable for me now. That being said, I still get anxiety, so I don't know. I do get curious sometimes about how I would have managed my dietetic internship had I been on medication then, because I was super anxious. I talked about earlier just like the tension that I get, and it was kind of like that every day. Like from the minute like the drive to whatever location I was going to was okay. Like I could kind of zone out, listen to music, enjoy the drive. But then the closer I got, the more like nervous stomach I got, and racing heart. I'd have to take some deep breaths before I went in. And I would always be just like super tense. And then not until I got in the car at the end of the day could I finally take a true breath. And it's like when you have your muscles tightened all day, you're just so much more tired at the end of the day. So there's like there's no energy left to do things for you or for things that are in just my time. I had no energy, no brain capacity left to like do things that are fun for me. Like it wasn't until this year that I picked up a crochet project and have been just like really excited and enjoying, doing a craft like that. So yeah, self-employment definitely allowed the anxious introvert in me to flourish a little bit more. Traditional settings have been anxiety inducing in the past. So then the next question Rachel asked, what do you find personally rewarding in your field? What are the things that can be frustrating or disappointing? So I said, I love creating stories through video. When it comes to video editing, it's so personally satisfying to see a story come together or have a video feel complete and that my messaging is clear. I really love it when I get positive feedback that something I created was helpful or uplifting, and definitely motivates me to continue creating. It feels like I'm on the right track. At times, as much as I try to not be disappointed, I can't help but feel a little frustrated or disappointed when I put hours into an edit or for mediocre views. Social media or YouTube views are not the most important thing in the grand scheme of things, but it can be a bit disappointing when I don't get the immediate payoff. The important thing I keep in mind is that it's more about consistency and steady growth, so keep at it. I also love it when people send me photos or tag me on Instagram wearing one of my shirts. It's so fun to see something I designed existing out in the world. Yeah, for sure. If you have ordered anything from me from my shop, thank you, first of all. And if you ever wear it and want to tag me on Instagram, please do. It makes my day. I love to see my stuff out in the wild. But yeah, I think a lot of us get a lot of, that instant gratification when you get a like on something. And social media is for sure addicting. I feel like this question, I focused mostly on what I do personally with video editing, but I also find it rewarding when I was in my internship and it was during the pandemic and we were doing our internship directors set up Zoom calls with faculty and people at our university who were willing to sit down and have nutrition consults with us just so we could get some practice. And it was really satisfying to have a session with someone, have them really get something from you, and then want to schedule a follow-up. Just even being a student, like they wanted to do a follow-up and then following up with them and then saying like, oh yeah, I was implementing this, it worked well, or this didn't work, or I'm going to try to do some more of this, and just having them actually try it and do it and get somewhere with it. That's really rewarding to like actually see someone find your advice helpful. So yeah, that's rewarding when you're able to work one-on-one with someone and they see some results or some positive impact from your advice. I don't get that as much with video editing. I get it from like dietitians, but it's like, you know, with video editing and posting stuff online, unless it's social media and it's like that instant, you know, trending sort of thing, which I don't really do. You know, it's more of a long game, you know, with posting either a YouTube video or, you know, if somebody is creating a presentation for like a lead magnet, the, you know, people, when they click on their email list, they get directed to this, you know, free webinar that they can watch. Like, I don't necessarily know the impact that I'm having with that. So I don't get that instant gratification or personal satisfaction the same way. So next question, Rachel asked, what do you think the future looks like for nutrition entrepreneurs? So I said, bright. One of the things I loved about this profession when I first learned about it is the potential for endless opportunities to use the nutrition science knowledge you have to create a career for yourself. There are so many ways to apply your knowledge and help people, whether that's writing, film, media appearances, private practice, podcasting, coaching, illustration. There's so many different ways that you can take this profession, which I think is really nice. And as a creative person who gets bored easily and needs variety in her life, that is definitely one of the plus sides to this profession. Next question she asked is there any other type of education that helps you be successful as an entrepreneur? So I said learning from other entrepreneurs for sure. I meet with fellow freelance aRDists every week. Shout out Kelsey, Alexis, and Julia. We talk about our businesses, vent about what's going on, motivate each other, learn from each other, share wins and struggles. I think a lot can be learned from listening to other people's experiences and sharing your own. Sometimes I get clarity on something in my business simply by talking about it out loud to someone else. I also learned recently, and wish I had known this sooner, that you can access LinkedIn Learning for free using a library card. So I've been taking advantage of that. Haven't touched it in a while, but it is really helpful to, you know, be able to take little mini courses and do it for free, because I think LinkedIn Learning is a subscription service, but like I said, you can access it using a library card. At least my library has access to it. And then the other thing I would say is learning about legal stuff and taxes, something I need to learn more about, but definitely is important as an entrepreneur. Business skills are not something we are taught a whole lot about in the standard dietetic program, at least at my university. I know that some dietitians also pursue business classes and get an MBA and that sort of thing. I did not, but definitely business skills are good, and legal stuff. Okay, so her next question is, where do you see the opportunities for self-employment in the area of nutrition and dietetics? So I said, writing is definitely big. Anything you see online that has been written, someone else needed to write it, whether that's, you know, companies needing regular content for their blogs, websites, social media, someone needed to write it. So lots of companies or businesses, organizations, whatever, they need to keep up on like current events and new trends, new information, new research, etc. And so you can imagine nutrition is a big topic. I also said, I think the use of video will increase more and more as time goes on. Everything from creating social media content, self-producing content for YouTube, Patreon, educational courses. There are so many opportunities to use video in this field, and video editing is a great skill to have, but then again, I'm biased. And then the last part of this that I mentioned, I covered entirely in the last episode. So if you haven't watched episode 2 on representation, definitely recommend listening to it. So I said there are opportunities to use visual media to improve representation. For example, illustrating culturally relevant nutrition topics in a context that is relatable to that specific target audience, photography and illustrations of cultural foods for textbooks, writing your own book about a cultural experience, showing different skin tones and medical illustrations, depicting BIPOC individuals as educators, sharing nutrition knowledge on YouTube, and being a model for future RDs. There are tons of opportunities, so if you have a vision, make it happen. And then her last question was, if you could give me, an aspiring entrepreneur, any advice, what would that be? I said, it's never too early to get started. Done is better than perfect, and tell imposter syndrome to f*** off. So thank you so much, Rachel, for those questions. I really enjoyed answering them. It's good to like reflect on my own entrepreneurship and my goals and stuff. So I appreciate all those questions. And if you have any questions, listeners, for me and that you want to ask, I can answer them in a future episode. Or if you have topic suggestions, you can message me either on Instagram. I'll put links in the description and stuff below. So as I wrap things up, I also want to ask if there's anybody who wants to be a podcast guest or guest host your own episode. Feel free to message me and ask about that. I am happy to kind of hand the mic over to other people who want to talk about their experiences or creative endeavors and that sort of thing. Also, if you haven't already joined the Facebook group, please do so. Our next virtual meetup is going to be in April. Usually it's just pretty casual. We just get together, talk about whatever we want to talk about, and it's just nice to check in with other creative people and get to know each other, kind of network. It's really casual. If you haven't noticed yet, I'm a pretty casual person. There's not a lot of structure to it. I try to put a little bit of like context to like what we want to talk about for that thing, but it's pretty flexible. And then also I'm going to be speaking at the RD Entrepreneur Symposium later this month. If you're interested in hearing more about that, I have information on my Instagram page. And then if you're signed up for my newsletter already, you'll be getting more information about that. So yeah. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a like and subscribe. Follow the show, leave a rating, leave a review. Appreciate it. Helps the show out. And then I also want to mention in the next episode, I'm going to be sharing a bunch of books that were either written or created by dietitians. If you're listening and you're a dietitian and you have created a book, let me know. Send me a link to it at aRDistsPOD@thecarminator.com. That's aRDistsPOD at thecarminator.com, and I will give it a shout out in the next episode. And yeah, with that, I will see you next time. Bye.